What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Auburn Blitz podcast here on this Thursday morning. A little frost on the ground outside. If you don't like the weather in Alabama, just wait 24 hours, right? You'll get a little bit different. Look, I'm in the court of cold weather used to not bother me, but everything about it sucks. I don't know why you'd move up north. I don't know why you would. It ruins everything. Everybody gets sick in the wintertime. I mean, I like a fire just like anybody because, I like to be outdoors and stuff. But, man, this crap's for the birds. When you get down in the 30s and the 20s and everything dies, I mean, there's nothing good about winter. And, of course, I like to fish and I know it was stupid back then and it's even more stupid now. But I never really batted an eye about going out on the lake when it was 25 degrees and fishing all day. The thought of that now is like you were stupid then, and you're even stupider for thinking about it right now. I just don't know why anybody would want to move up north. I don't. I see why people get the hell out of there.
Well, I think it's what we use as a benefit for us to recruit down south. We've always said it. Why in the world would a kid from the state of Alabama want to go to Ohio State or Michigan to play in that nightmare? I couldn't have. I mean,
these first round playoff games, Randy, are going to be cold up there.
Hey, but I will say this though. I've got a good friend of mine that's a Penn State grad, and Matt, if you're tuning in out there, hello, my friend. I'll see you tonight. But he's been talking about it all year, Brett. He's looking forward to it because he's used to that weather. And if they can get the SEC schools up there playing at a home venue in those type of conditions, that it only helps their schools. And look, I'll say this, that is part of football. When you and I were growing up and you didn't have the fields conditioned and and Braden probably is going to learn about all of this, but you have that underground conditioning that keeps the fields from freezing over. And most of the schools out there, your bigger schools, have that now. So the fields at least can stay reasonable unless it's snowing and really, really cold. But that's always been a big part of football when we were growing up. If you watch the NFL, you go, I wonder where that playoff game's being played. One, is it being played in Miami or Green Bay? Because if it's being played in Green Bay, I'm going with the team that's used to playing outside in the weather. And I do think that's part of football. It doesn't mean I enjoy that part of football or that I ever enjoyed playing in conditions like that. But it does help those teams. And I kind of like that, Brett. It makes it intriguing and a little bit more of a storyline when our southern schools have to go up there and how they handle the conditions.
No doubt. I mean, it is part of what's always fun about the NFL playoffs is when you get Miami to have to go and play Kansas City like they did. It may have been last year or year before. I can't remember which one it was, where the water froze. Even the Kansas City people were pissed off it was that cold. All right, they're like, okay, we like some cold, but that was so brutal that I think when the water bottles in the start freezing as soon as they get them out of the freezer, which is crazy in itself, they hand it to you and it freezes, or get it out of the refrigerator, give it to you and it freezes out in the cold. That's just cold. But anyway, yeah, I'm already counting down to the first spring days where we start getting warmer weather. Again, Glenn said Army Navy coming up this weekend. Yeah, I mean, should be cold up there too. It always is for the Army Navy games. So that's the last regular season game before we get ready. Hey, look, we're only 8 days away from the first playoff game on Friday the 20th. So a week from tomorrow. I mean, you got Indiana and Notre Dame, and that game's got a little bit of a lore to it because they're both there in that state. And, there's a little bit of background. But anyway, that should be a fun game to start the college football playoff.
Well, I'd like to hear from everybody else, but I'm an 80s kid, an early 90s kid playing high school football. And I love watching those systems play college football, Brett. I love Paul Johnson's system. I love that wing tee. When we were coming through school, I'll put it this way. When you were a junior and I was a sophomore in high school, we went on a really good run, went to the quarterfinals and played. And I had the unfortunate job of being the scout team quarterback. But I learned so much that year, Brett, because about every team we played going into the quarterfinal matchup with Phoenix City ran a different wing tee, wishbone, pound and grind out offense where the quarterback had to, learn a lot of things within a week to be able to give the defense something to be ready for on Friday night. And so since then, I've really enjoyed those type of offenses. I know how well they can be run when they're run well. And you get those matchups, when Air Force plays. If you're not used to playing Air Force, if you're not used to playing a wishbone attack or a veer attack or a wing T formation, it can be really difficult. And Georgia Tech did it really well under Paul Johnson. Really, wherever Paul Johnson was, they did it well. But how about you, Brett? Do you enjoy watching those type of offenses? Because we don't get to see them even in the high school. When's the last wing T team that you and I saw in high school football?
You can go on down into the lower,
the lower
classifications.
classifications. You and I will see them. I mean,
right.
on Friday nights that you and I call.
No, we don't see them much, and they pretty much have gone away. I mean,
they have, haven't they?
Yeah, you might see a team come out in one series and just to change something up, but they don't come out and run an entire offense based off of a double wing or a wing T formation and all. So, yeah, I mean, and then the odd thing about the Gus Malzahn style offense and the way these offenses are run is it's a variation of a wing T. I mean,
Agreed.
when you line up, even in the shotgun or however it is that you want to line up, it's just a variation with the motion and the way things are. You're trying to get the defense to look one way and get them to be out of position. That's the whole gist of running that style of offense, is getting the defense to guess for a second look one way and then you take the ball the other way. So that's what makes that work so well. But yeah, look, the Army-Navy game is always a classic. Everybody enjoys watching that, and again, it wraps up the official end of the regular season. And then again, like I said, we're 8 days away from the first playoff game, and I'm excited. And Andy said this the other day on the show with me. He said, "Let's just let this thing play out 1 year, and let's see how it all goes." They're going to tweak some things and all, and everybody's up in arms about somebody didn't get in or somebody didn't get a home playoff game or somebody got seeded wrong or whatever. Let's just kind of get 1 year under our belt and see what happens. I mean, look, in all fairness to officials and all fairness to committee members, everybody's human. Everybody's trying to, I think, do the right thing. I don't think anybody goes in there with a mindset, I'm going to screw somebody. Although we tend to, as fans, think when we're on the outside looking in, and we've been in that boat before, we thought, well, the world's against us. Nobody wants to see us get in. And, that's in our little microcosm of a world sometimes. So I think everybody wants to just see the playoffs. I think we've got a lot of great games that are coming up, and we'll see how it all plays out. I mean, will we get a third matchup between Texas and Georgia? I mean, it could happen because they're on opposite sides of the bracket. And if Texas makes the run all the way through and Georgia makes the run all the way through, we'll be playing those two teams in Atlanta again, just like in the SEC championship game for a national championship game. And to me, that would be detrimental to the playoffs because we've already seen that twice. And we've seen Georgia win 2 games against Texas. And I think the country would be like, did we do all that just to get that again? So, again, they can get back to play each other, but I don't think the country would like to see that. And what if Texas beat Georgia this time? I mean, does the first 2 matchups between them not count? I mean, so I think the country's pulling for, one of those teams maybe, and then somebody else to get in there.
Well, if you want that to happen, the quarterback situation at Georgia gives you a reason to believe that may be the case. Now, can Georgia, probably with the most talented squad that's left in the playoffs, can they run the table and win it? Of course they can. They have a lot, and Stockton, I really like the change-up that he brings to the quarterback position, the ability to run the football. Brett, you think Texas goes with a little more Arch Manning in this playoff run than we've seen? Quinn Ewers, if anything's been
average,
slightly above average here as of recent, and he completely takes the option of him running the football out of the game right now. He's not that style of quarterback that Arch Manning is. Your thoughts? There's a lot of talk around them not playing their best quarterback. We saw it with Alabama. We thought the same with Jalen Hurts and Tua. When finally Nick Saban, after that halftime break where Jalen couldn't get anything going, said, I got to make a change. Could we see some of that even early on for Texas in this playoff run?
You know, if you're in the playoffs, the season starts over for you. You get a second chance. You've navigated through the regular season to get your team here. I think if you don't lay everything out on the table, you're stupid. And if you're Steve Sarkisian, you kind of, I don't want to say you limped into the playoffs, but you kind of did, because the team that beat you twice, people are like, I don't really need to see much more of that in the same version. And if you're Texas, what you failed to do is score points, and you failed to sustain drives. I mean, that offense just kind of went in the tank.
Can't run the football at all.
Zero. So
what do they have? 80 total rushing yards in the two games combined. Is that the right number?
Yeah, it didn't get over 100.
No, I mean both games
combined. That's what I'm saying. It
yeah.
didn't get over 100. The combined rushing total was not over 100. So that's pitiful. And for you to be, look, the argument for everybody against SMU, the resume was almost the same for Texas. Everybody was saying, okay, if you're going to leave SMU out, you better leave Texas out, because they have no more quality wins than SMU does. The best quality win on Texas schedule is Texas A&M, and that came a couple of weeks ago. And so, I mean, people have a right to throw that out there. Just because you're Texas and you've been in the top 5 all year doesn't anoint you as an automatic push you into the playoff. Now, again, maybe a little bit tougher schedule, but they have one quality win really to speak of, and that's that Texas A&M game. So they don't run the ball well, and historically in championship environments, if you can't run the football, you're not going to win the game. So if I'm Steve Sarkisian, yeah, you got Arch Manning over there that we saw for, I think, one play in the SEC championship game. You're going to see
a couple of plays.
Yeah, I mean whatever. And you know, basically, you know, I would be looking at, if I think that's going to be a wrinkle or a viable option for me to move forward, then I'm going to play him. And I think you got to look at it from that standpoint.
I really don't know. I can't get a good feel on whether they're going to do that or not. It's hard to get a good feel on what they're going to do in their quarterback room next year. Do both show back up? Does somebody transfer out? Is Arch Manning the future for them?
Yes. The answer to that's yes.
Well, but if the answer for that's yes, the answer is not Quinn Ewers coming back to Texas then.
No, he's probably going to go try the NFL draft. I mean, okay, when all is said and done, he could go play college football one more time. He could get in the port. He's got options. But I think, and again, this is speculative on my part, that you're sitting there with a Manning family, and Arch Manning has been patient, okay? Arch Manning has not been over here whining, and you haven't heard a lot of noise about, I can't get in, and he's bided his time. But I think there's an understanding there that, hey, look, I'm not going to do this again next year. So if you want to write and see Quinn Ewers, at best, you got 1 year left with him. If you're Texas, you're moving in another direction from Quinn Ewers at the end of this year, whatever that is. So I think Arch Manning is the quarterback, and whatever Quinn Ewers decides to do, whether that go try his fate somewhere else one more year in college or go on to the pros, will be completely up to him. But if I'm Texas, you've got your quarterback waiting in the wings. And look, again, based on the conversation you and I'm having this morning, I think you're going to see more of Arch Manning in this playoff, and I don't know why you wouldn't, because this is a new season, and you're not getting production out of your quarterback right now to the level you feel like can win a championship. You're not going in there to win a game. You're trying to win it all. So it's not like you're going to be disrupting some chemistry in this offense if you put Arch Manning in there versus Quinn Ewers, because the production's not there anyway.
Well, let's move into the 2025 football schedule for Auburn, Brett. I saw it come out yesterday. A wow. This Auburn schedule's it's got some areas where you feel like Auburn should win, and I'm sure we're going to do what we do as Auburn fans in the off season and talk ourselves into some that are probably.
I'm not.
No, we've talked. You and I have talked about we're not doing that this year, but this is a tough schedule. You know, the road games to start the season when Auburn still got a lot of question marks and plan to play a lot of young guys is going to be difficult. The only surefire thing that could correct all of this is to go out and get a top tier quarterback in the portal that you can have a lot of confidence in to come in and make a splash on the offensive side of the ball, which was an ailment this year. I still question whether that guy's out there. Maybe that guy's just not in the portal yet. Maybe we know who we're looking for. Maybe it's Jackson Arnold, and I'm not giving him enough credit for the type of player he is or can be. I do have my questions there, but Brett, this 2025 schedule's daunting for Auburn. Now, it wouldn't be daunting if this was an Auburn team that was reeling off 10-plus win seasons multiple years in a row. I'd probably look at this schedule and say, I'll take that one every year. Give me that one every year, and I'll be happy with it. But knowing what I know for Auburn over the last 4 years with losing seasons, looking at that schedule and looking at those road games in those first 5 weeks, some of those road games, including the first one there at Baylor, Hugh Freeze better get things corrected in the short term. I'll say that going in.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, look, I watched this. I didn't see all of it, but I saw several teams' schedules. And there's some obviously easier than others, but there's a lot that, everybody's got a gripe. Everybody's got a stretch on their schedule where you go, man, it's going to be tough. I know one that stood out to me yesterday was Texas A&M. Their last half of the season is brutal. I know this past year, Florida, everybody said, good Lord. I didn't think Florida would win 3 games this year. That's why I think Billy Napier is coach of the year. And it looked like at the beginning of the year they weren't going to win 3 games. But they turned it around, and DJ Lagway played extremely well. If you have a question about Billy Napier's, why didn't you start him in the season? And I know Graham Mertz had probably earned the right to start and whatever. But at the end of the day, they turned it around. And, outside of Shane Beamer, he had the most surprising job of coaching that probably anybody, because everybody looked at their schedule and said, that's awful. And, Oklahoma had a bad draw this past year, and they were able to get to 6 wins, but it was not easy. Let's be honest. You had to have some tanks like Auburn to just give a game away to get Oklahoma to 6 wins. They were dead in the water, beat, didn't have any hope, and Auburn had to just literally just throw it all out on the field for them to take. And so everybody's got something that they can talk about, and obviously we don't have enough time this morning to talk about all the schedules, but it's a gauntlet, and you got to be able to navigate certain stretches of your schedule. And I think we're in a situation now where, you're going to have teams with 2 losses now, a lot of 2-loss teams, especially in this conference, that are going to be up for playoff. And then that you're going to have some like Alabama and Ole Miss and South Carolina with 3 losses that have a argument every year to get in the playoff because of how they're playing maybe currently and what their strength of schedule was and how maybe they lost some of those games. So, you look at South Carolina this year, they lost 2 games by less than a touchdown. And they came down to the very end, and one of them came down to a bad call on the field by an official. So this is the new age of college football. You're not going to see – you might see it out of some of these other conferences, but the SEC better understand. Adding Oklahoma and Texas to this thing, you made it extremely hard to go undefeated. And if you go undefeated, man, I don't care who you draw, you've earned it.
The draw does make – you make a good point, though. The draw makes a big, big difference. And unfortunately for Auburn, it gets no easier for us. It's the reason that I'm hopeful that Auburn says these out-of-conference games with this new playoff structure, we're out. We're not going to put ourselves in a bind to have to go play anybody, because the only chance Auburn's got to not have one of the toughest SEC schedules every year is that the draw is much easier outside of Alabama and Georgia, or Alabama and Georgia come back down to earth. Now, I sense that Alabama and Georgia's not coming back to earth anytime soon. So with them being our built-in rivals, we've got one of the toughest schedules in the SEC year in and year out, because we're going to have to every year play, right now, the two toughest teams in the SEC. You may say Texas is going to be one of those.
They're
toughest
not, though,
teams.
right now, though.
I'd rather play Texas any day of the week than Alabama and Georgia right now. And I think anybody else in the SEC would say the exact same thing. Well, unfortunately for Auburn, we're right in the middle of them. We're competing with them day in and day out for recruits. We're competing with them on the field. If you don't choose to want to do that, then don't come coach or be part of Auburn. I think a lot of kids are, and hopefully our coaching staff is realizing that we can compete with those type of teams if we get our roster up to standard that we're getting it right now. So it's difficult. We beat a dead horse this week on worrying about out-of-conference games, but I'm 110% behind our good friend Luke Robinson and what he said. You must go back and relook at the entire setup. It's because it's completely different than it was 2 or 3 years ago. 2 or 3 years ago, you may end up in a situation where there's only 4 teams getting in the playoffs, Brett, and you may go, well, Auburn didn't play anybody out of conference. They won their SEC games. My gosh, they played Ball State and Western Kentucky and Murray State and UAB out of conference. And Alabama had the same record, but they played Utah and Wisconsin and Penn State out of conference. Who's going to get in? Now, who cares? Because there's 12 teams to get in, and you've got to have a strong enough record to be in the conversation. So now whether they give us all a chance to go back and clean these schedules up and make them a little bit more SEC friendly, because you made a great point yesterday. The other conferences need those strong games. The SEC doesn't. If we beat Alabama and Georgia and LSU and win 2 or 3 others that are going to be teams that could go to any of those other conferences and probably win 9 or 10 games, and when I'm talking about that, I'm saying Ole Miss, South Carolina, keep going down the list, Florida on the come up again. If we beat enough of those to only have 2 or 3 losses, then we deserve to be in the playoffs playing Alabama and Georgia every year. And we don't need to prove anything outside. Now, some of these other conferences, they need to prove something. But do you think they'll give us all a chance to go back and change that out, or no, we just need to go ahead and deal with what we've got on the schedule?
I don't know. I don't know.
If I'm the SEC commissioner, I'm begging for it. Because you've proven this year that you don't care about strength of schedule. You care that you're into conference.
Unfortunately, this year, the problem is you're trying to predict the future, and you don't know what the committee's going to do next year. I mean, we've seen such knee-jerk reactions from committees that they go, okay, we screwed that up last year. Now we're going to put strength of schedule on there. And I can already foresee an argument of people changing the schedule. And then you look at a committee that comes in and goes, well, you played Ball State, you played Western Kentucky, and you played McNeese State. Your record's not as good. Your strength schedule's not as good. We're going to give it would literally be the most college football playoff committee thing to do, is to go completely in an opposite direction of what you've seen this year. So I don't know if knee-jerk reacting and changing these schedules is the answer. I'll stick with my point that you just reiterated just a minute ago. I've said the whole time that all the way back 20 years ago when people were complaining about cupcake games and why do we go to these games, and watch Auburn play a team we beat by 5 touchdowns. Well, you got to think about the kids for one part. They have a grueling enough schedule week in and week out. And yeah, I mean, I love the fact of cutting on the TV or going to Auburn and watching Auburn play a quality opponent every single week. But you got to work in some teams where you can give your guys a little bit of a break. And especially now when they went to 12 games a few years ago in the schedule, you got to give your team, you can't play 12 games where it's just mentally and physically grueling. I mean, you can, but you better work some of those other ones in if you want to try to survive. Because, again, now in the 12-team playoff, it's about getting to the playoff with as healthy of a roster as you possibly can. That's another thing. And so now you look at these SEC and other conference championship games. I mean, Georgia's sitting there wondering, why in the world did we play in this game? Yeah, we won the SEC championship game, but our starting quarterback may not be able to play at all during this playoff at the most important time of the season. So, man, I am hesitant to say, let's go do this because we think the committee's going to do this next year. I don't know what they're going to do. And so that's why it leaves everything up for – but I do think what we've all agreed on is that the SEC playing their schedule is tough enough. And if Auburn were to win one of those two games every year between Georgia and Alabama, there's one massive quality win that nobody else probably will even have out of these other conferences. So let these other conferences go and see if they can coerce somebody to play them to add a little bit of strength to their schedule if they feel like they need to do that.
Quick note out there, comment away. The more comments you throw to us, Brett will pop those up on the screen.
We got them coming in.
We'll be able to talk through some of those as we transition over. Hey, this has been a big topic, Glenn. Brett and I actually on a text thread coming into the show this morning. My dad thinks Belichick is about to fall flat on his face. But can Belichick help change college football? I don't know if he can help change it. I've got more confidence in somebody in a leadership standpoint with the NCAA or someone that they were to bring in to change it. But Belichick's going to have to play under the rules that are set in place, and I'm not sure he's going to be in any leadership role when he's the head coach at UNC to make any of those changes.
He's just not dynamic to me, man. I mean, this guy, hey, I'm a Tampa Bay Bucks fan. So I loved it when Tom Brady went to Tampa. And everybody wondered who was the reason they won all those Super Bowls in New England. Was it Bill Belichick or was it Tom Brady? Well, I don't have to say anything. Go back and look and see what happened when Tom Brady left New England. Heck, Bill Belichick couldn't even get in the damn playoffs, and the whole team fell apart. So I don't want to hear anybody come at me about Bill Belichick. And you remember him prior to having Tom Brady. I mean, he bounced around in the NFL, and I mean, he's a good coach. I'm not diminishing that, but am I afraid of Bill Belichick being the oldest coach in college football on day one of him starting at North Carolina, rolling in there, and they're going to all of a sudden just become some massive powerhouse the rest of us can't deal with? I'm not worried about Bill Belichick at all with his dry, well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to make this an NFL factory. We're going to come in, and if you're going to come here, we're going to run it like a pro program, and we're going to go out and do. I'm like, man, who cares, dude? Yeah, we'll do whatever you feel like you got to do. But I'm not buying it. Now, again, I'll eat my words. You come back and replay this show in a few years and say that was a stupid comment, and I'll admit it. But I don't think Bill Belichick coming in with a bunch of dry toast is impressing anybody more than any of these other coaches that are that have good NIL and collectives and are able to go out and get quality players and build a great roster. I'm just not. I'm not bought into that.
Do I think he can develop players? Sure. Do I think he can win by developing players in the transfer portal age in college football without getting top-notch recruits and spending boatloads of money in the NIL? No, I don't think any of us can. I don't think there is any development in place with as good a coach as are now that he's just going to roll out there on the field and just out-coach everybody that he matches up with if he doesn't have a roster that matches the opposition on the other side. I don't believe that. Now, he won with years at times at New England where you looked at some skill positions and some players that he had and you go, well, they're not in the tops of the league, but he had the best quarterback in the league.
Tom Brady was the reason.
And that offsets everything. So now if he gets the best quarterback in college football at North Carolina and able to coach him, sure. We all win with that, though.
I was going to say, that's not some secret formula.
So can he go and get him? Can he recruit that guy? Can he pay what a Cam Ward's worth on the open market? We'll see. Carolina's got to pony up if they want to play big boy football. And North Carolina's a good team. They're a middle of the pack ACC team. That's not a bad program. I mean, they were in the ACC championship game, 2 or 3 years ago?
I mean, look, you should be able to go to North Carolina with the Jordan brand and everything around them marketing wise. And, I think that's why their basketball program right now, they're not pleased with what Hubert Davis is doing. I mean, Alabama and Auburn both shelled North Carolina this year already. And look, we've played North Carolina a few times now in the last several years, and we've beaten them. I mean, their program is not, again, these blue bloods aren't the blue bloods of the past. Yes, they have the history behind their name, but Auburn are you scared to play Kentucky now? Ever?
No.
At Auburn? Okay, Alabama's not either. All right, so are you scared to play North Carolina on a neutral site or even go to Chapel Hill? Now, we just went to Duke and had every opportunity to win that game. You're not going to win every basketball game, but we had over 1,000 fans in Cameron Indoor. The days of these blue bloods, the Kansases, and Kansas just rolled into Missouri and got beat. They don't roll in and everybody's shaking in the shorts going, oh, we're just glad to be on the floor with this team and this program. But no, the expectation in this generation, their mindset's different. They don't look over at the Columbia blue and white and get scared. They don't look over at the Jayhawk on the side of the short and go, man, we just hope we play good. They go in with an expectation of winning. I mean, you look at the top two teams in the country right now, it's Auburn and Tennessee. That's the mentality of this thing now. But you have the brand and the money, and those fans, just like our fans at Auburn, want to win, and they want to get their prestige back. And so Bill Belichick kind of brings a little bit of a buzz to North Carolina's football program right now. Now, what will that translate to after the dust settles? I don't know, but we'll see. Travis said we get our QB1 this week and a couple of solid OTs. We will be fine next season. Got a great chance to be fine next year, but here's the biggest part of that statement is that QB1. Is it Malik Murphy? I saw a stat yesterday. Let me just tell everybody this one. I want to make sure I say it right. So I'm going to pull it up. A little bit concerning. Somebody had screenshot this and put it on Twitter, I believe. And this was during one of their games this year. But there was a graphic along the bottom of the screen that said Malik Murphy, when pressured, had the worst completion percentage in FBS. 20%. 20% completion percentage for Malik Murphy when he's pressured. Now, I don't know which game that was. I don't know if that was after week 3 or if that was after week 11. But now he put up great numbers passing the football this year. But, again, he is not a dual threat quarterback. He's not going to run. He had minus 75 yards rushing this year. Now, again, that takes into effect sacks and all that. But a running quarterback, if you look on the page and somebody's rushed for 500-600 yards, their sack yards are in there too, which means that they've had that taken out and they still ran for 500 or 600 yards. So when you look down at a quarterback that's got minus 75 or minus 79 yards rushing on the season, he's not a guy that's going to take off and run. Or he's either in an offense that does not predicate him to be a running quarterback.
And here is a concerning comment on what you just said there. I don't know what Hugh Freeze wants. I don't know if he wants a guy that's dual threat. I don't know if he wants a Malik Willis, who he coached up exceptionally well at Liberty. I give him the benefit of the doubt. Auburn let Malik Willis get out when I cried bloody murder. And he was the imps of Nick Marshall, and he went on and he had a tremendous career and he's made it to the NFL. And Lord knows I can't even remember all the ones that we threw in there that we chose over him during that stretch. But I don't know what Hugh Freeze wants at Auburn, Brett. Do you have an answer for that? My biggest complaint about Auburn since 2014, starting the 2015 season till now, I don't know what Auburn's offensive identity is. I have no clue if we want to play fast. I have no clue if we want to go get a quarterback that has the potential to rush for 700 to 900 yards a year. I don't know what we want to do. It feels like we change what we want to do. We change our offensive concept several times throughout the season based off of the production that we're getting. Am I off by that statement, Auburn fans? Let me know your thoughts. I mean, that is the feel I have. And when you don't have an identity, what do you sell? So my answer is, if Murphy is who we're looking for, it's not who I'd be looking for, but it doesn't matter who I'm looking for.
Okay.
I don't matter.
Well, we got some comments coming in, Randy, and
Okay.
again, you and I don't watch Duke football, so I knew who Malik Murphy was, but I mean, I don't watch their games. I just don't. So we try to be honest on here. We're not some Duke football specialist here, but Travis says that he gets the ball out quick and only took 12 sacks last year. He's mobile enough to evade and throw a good ball. Glenn said that Murphy came out of high school as a dual threat. Now, let me go back to a comment I just made. Maybe he's in an offense that does not predicate him to run the football. Maybe he has the ability to run the football. Maybe that's why he's getting in the portal, Randy. Maybe he doesn't like the offense he's in. Maybe that's again, that's part of this deal. I don't know. That's all speculation on my part and your part. But again, he does throw a good ball. He did throw for almost 3,000 yards this year. He did throw 26 touchdown passes. He did have a high percentage completion rate, which all that's great. And I think he's high on Auburn's list. And at the end of the day, I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think that's who Auburn ends up with. It just feels like it right now. It feels like that's who Auburn wants. He feels it just seems like his camp likes Auburn. And again, I don't know. I mean, he's got good stats passing. He has no stats rushing. So it's hard to give a opinion on that if he does not playing an offense where it predicates him to run the football. So Travis said he set the Duke touchdown passing record this year. So again, I'm not doubting his abilities, and I hope he comes to Auburn, and I hope he wins the Heisman Trophy and we play in the playoffs next year. If that's the case, I'm pulling for him. If he decides to come to Auburn, I'm immediately a Malik Murphy fan. That's who I am. I'm going to pull for whoever our coaching staff goes out there and gets. I'm not a big high on Jackson Arnold guy, but if Auburn goes out and decides that's who they want, I'm going to be pulling for Jackson Arnold next year. Okay? But that's my take on that. What's your take?
It's the same. I'm not going to veer off of what I think's the best potential quarterback for Auburn. I've been saying it for a dozen years. I'm going to keep saying it. I loved what we got in 13 and 14. The opportunity to go out there and find somebody like that is who I would go get. Is Malik Murphy that guy? Hell if I know. I mean, I'm only going off the stat totals I see. And I don't know exactly, back to my point on the pass statement, I don't know what Hugh Freeze wants. He may want a pocket passer that can run this RPO system and very smart and cerebral and can make the plays and the throws and the short lateral throws he's able to make consistently, and he can do those things. That Hugh Freeze is the coach, not me. I can only give a take. And my take is when I look down at the stat total and I see that you've rushed for no yards, that hasn't really worked out for Auburn so far. Now, can our offensive line be good enough in the future, way better than we've been in the past, say under Gus Malzahn? Sure, I'm all in for that. If we can hold pressure back and he can get rid of the football quick and we don't have to necessarily worry about him running for his life like poor Bo Nix did the entire time he was at Auburn, I'm all for it. But we haven't done that yet. And we haven't done that in 2 years under Hugh Freeze either. So until I'm proven that in the SEC now, there's no comparison, by the way. There's no comparison to the defensive line and the pressure that's thrown at our quarterbacks in this conference to other conferences. I mean, hell, look at TJ Finley. Look at all these other quarterbacks that end up going to a different school and put up great numbers. Well, hell, I don't want them back at Auburn. Just because they're putting up great numbers somewhere else doesn't make me feel like they were going to do the same at Auburn. But I'm all for it. Look, if that's the choice, I'm probably 50-50 on either one, honestly. Jackson Arnold shown that he can run the football, but he didn't play a lot of football, but he comes out highly recruited. And Murphy, as far as spinning the ball and throwing the ball, feels like he is a good fit with the receivers that we've got out there. So you got to trust at some point that your coaching staff and your head coach, who is the offensive coordinator, is going to pick the guy that he wants, and that guy turns out.
you've said it 100 times. You don't have to come out and set the world on fire running the ball, but you just have to be a threat. That's all this is.
Yeah.
Is that you have to make the defense respect that the quarterback can pull the ball down and run. He's 6'5", 230 pounds, a big dude, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a big dude. He can throw the foot. Obviously, the biggest question the problem for Auburn is the inconsistency in the passing game the last couple years, right? Like Peyton Thorne, it would just drive you insane when we didn't know the year before if it was the receivers couldn't get separation. And then we saw Hank Brown come in against Maryland. He was putting balls on the money. You were like, well, see, it really ain't our receivers. Then you go out and get the best receiving class you've ever had, and the passing got a little bit better, but he missed several key opportunities in games that probably could have won games for Auburn. He made bad throws, made bad decisions. You get a guy in there like Malik Murphy that's as accurate as he is and throws the ball the way he is to the receivers that Auburn has. And then if you get somebody like, coming in from Georgia Tech, you get Eric Singleton, who was on campus yesterday. We know that for 100%. He was in the athletic department. If you get him to commit and you add another piece to kind of replace KLS there, man, you got a guy that I think the receiving room is excited to have on campus when you look at what Malik Murphy was able to do throwing the football at Duke. So they're 9-3 and we're 5-7. I'll put it that way. So if we want to cast stones at somebody and talk about a quarterback, he'll be better than what we've had. I'll put it that way. Will that be good enough in the SEC to get us where we want to go? I don't know. But again, he hasn't signed with Auburn yet. This is all us speculating and talking to this point. So we'll see. But we'll continue to update you here on the Auburn Blitz podcast and on the Auburn Blitz show. Any information that we get, we'll be able to pass that along. I want to go back real quick and talk about the schedule since it's the lead topic. We didn't really dive into it, and that'll be the thing that we finish with. Randy, if you look at Auburn's schedule, you open up with Baylor. This is not an easy trip, and it's the first true road trip for Auburn, a true road game, not a neutral site game, a true road game for Auburn since we went out to USC back in, was it 2002 that we went out there and played them. And again, it was a good Auburn football team that went out there and lost a close game. But when you open up on the road at another team's place, it's hard. So Auburn starts with Baylor on August the 30th.
It's a tough draw. It's back to what I've beaten a dead horse this week. I don't know what benefits Auburn to go and do that. Will it make us a better team by the end of the season? Potentially. Is it a 50-50 game to start the season that you could win or lose on the road, though? And we don't need to lose any football games, and probably with a lot of youth that we're going to throw out there, and no doubt a new quarterback that'll be starting, whether it's even Walker White or anyone else, going to be their first start for Auburn. For sure. So, there's a lot of question marks. I have no take on how we play in this game. I love our pieces. I love the recruiting classes, but I'm going to say the same thing I said yesterday and the day before. I'm over the excuses. Give me no more. You're in year 3. By the time you get to year 3, you've chosen the pieces that you've got out there. And if you're riding with a lot of youth and you're going on the road to play Baylor at their place to start the season, hopefully you coach them up well enough to be prepared for it, or to be a tough start to the season. I'd much rather us have a chance, and I'm going to keep saying it, but I'd much rather us all have a chance to go back and reevaluate where you need to have these schedules out of conference if you're living in the SEC. Because if strength of schedules, and I know it could change, Brett, and the group and the committee next year could be could completely change what they deem as important for.
Lost your audio there for a little bit. There you got you back now. You kind of buffered out on us a little bit. But got you back.
But I don't know where I finished it. But my point was going on the road to play at Baylor to start the season.
It's tough.
I don't know what benefit
Tough.
it can be for us. It could make us a better team by the end of the year, sure. But in the day and age of 12-team playoff, taking a chance to open the season to go on the road out of conference, I don't see why in the world we choose to do that moving forward.
All right, you got Ball State and South Alabama at home. So you come back for 2 games at home, and both of those should be wins for Auburn. I mean, let's be honest about it. If you're in any kind of talk about doing anything next year, you got to come home and get those 2 before you take off on to open up SEC play at Oklahoma, man. So you open up SEC play at Oklahoma, and then you got to go to Texas A&M right after that, back-to-back weeks before you have an off week.
3 out of the first 5 weeks are losable football games on the road, where all 3, I would say right now, and where we sit with the Auburn program, those are all 50-50 games at best. And we won't be favored in either of the last 2, and we probably won't be favored in the first. So we're going to have to be getting a lot better in a short period of time for Hugh Freeze to get the Auburn faithful positive on where we're moving. Now, look, we're going to have some true tests on 3 of those first 5 weeks, and I don't want to be Johnny Downer in here as we start the season, but that is a tough ask for a lot of young guys and a new starting quarterback back there for Auburn.
Then you get a bye week on October the 4th, and then you're right back into the fire. You got Georgia that comes in on the 11th of October, and then Missouri. So you got a couple of home games there in October 11th and 18th. You got Georgia and Missouri. Again, Missouri has been a really good program the last 2 years under Eli Drinkwitz. Now, we should have beat them this year. There's no question about it. That was another one of those you give away games that you wish you had back, but you got them at home this year. And, can Auburn ever solve the riddle of Georgia again? I mean, you got them at home. I mean, this is not – I mean, they're a good team, but they were a team this year that's shown many flaws and many vulnerabilities. So, can Auburn get better and bring a Georgia team in here midway through the season and try to get a win for the first time since Buck was a calf? I don't know. I mean, but
I have less than zero confidence that we can. So I'll leave it at that. Until I'm proven wrong by that statement, I'm going to stick with that. We like to look at ourselves as their rival, but that is not a rivalry anymore because we don't win enough of them to mount to anything. We've won like 3 times in the last 17 or 18 matchups with them. It's an odd year when we beat them. Now, have we played them well? Sure. But we don't win any of them that we play them well in. And so this better than anybody. I'm way more sick about that rivalry than I am the Alabama. We've been competitive in that Alabama, but Georgia's left us in the dust a long time ago. And
which is inexcusable.
It is inexcusable. As an 80s and 90s kid like you and I were, I never believed that we would have let Georgia get this far away from us, but it's happened. Here we are.
Yeah, at some point in time, you got to turn it around. And we'll see what they're able to do this coming year. Then you go on the road to Arkansas. They've got their issues over there. If you got anything about you, again, it's still on the road. It's still in the SEC, but if you're at that point in time in the season, you're going to know a lot more about who you are as a team on October the 25th. It's not going to be up for debate. You're either going to be a competitive team that has a shot to make the playoffs, or you're already going to be out of it. So if you're in the hunt and you have a good football team, you should go to Arkansas and be favored to win the game. So we'll see how that goes. Then you come back home and play Kentucky on November the 1st. And then you go on the road on November the 8th to take on Vanderbilt before you get your second bye on the 15th. And then you finish with Mercer on the 22nd and Alabama at home on the 29th. So you close with 2 home games. But this schedule is more of a play 2 on the road, play 2 at home. Play 2 on the road, play 2 at home. Play 1 on the road, play 1 at home. It's a back and forth. You don't have a schedule like we had last year where you open up with your first 5 games being all at home, and then it's like then we go on the road for a month. This is more of a typical schedule.
I like this schedule better. For those of us that tailgate, spend a lot of money to go over there with our entire families like you and I do, Brett, a schedule like this is much better than running a whole 4, 5, 6 week stretch where every weekend you really can't plan anything. And those of us with kids that's playing ball and traveling all over the place doing that, it makes it really difficult to not miss out on a lot of those games. So I really like this schedule better. But as players, as a team, as a coaching staff, this is not an easy schedule. Not currently where Auburn's football program is. This is a very difficult schedule, and the difficulty is right there at the front of it. Those 3 games on the road that you could lose all 3. Where Auburn's fan base is and where Hugh Freeze currently sits on the hot seat that he's on, some may think that he's not on the hot seat. Those of us that talk about this daily know that the Auburn fan base is –
you're moving into year 3.
I mean, he's got 2 losing seasons with some great recruiting classes, and those recruiting classes are our only hope. But it's got to transition to the field sooner than later.
Well, let's be honest. He blew it this year. The schedule was set up perfect for Auburn to win 8 or 9 games, and they should have won 8 or 9 games, and he blew it. So now the reason there's so much heat on him and so much pressure to go have to win a game in Norman, Oklahoma, and have to go to Kyle Field and win a game right out of the gate is because of the result of this season. If Auburn had won 8 or 9 games and then you start off this coming year with that schedule, people go, okay, yeah, I mean, there's a legit chance we could lose 2 out of those 3 or maybe all 3 based on whatever. But if you won 9 games, you would have a different mindset too going into that schedule. So everything changed because you laid such a daggum big egg this year with a schedule that everybody felt like was favorable. You opened up with 5 home games. You should have been 5-0. They didn't even have a winning record coming out of the daggum thing. I mean, that's a joke. I mean, we all said at worst you're 3-2. I mean, we didn't even get to that. So, I mean, you're in the hot seat because of the egg that you laid this year. Now, I'll close with I'm not going to make – by the way, we're not making any predictions on that schedule. I don't know what to predict. I told you about 4 weeks ago that I live in Missouri now, the show me state. So I want to be shown that I'm not going to get caught in the, hey, man, we're having a great spring and we're having a great blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. Hey, that's great. I hope we have a great spring. I hope we have a great fall camp. But I'm not going to get bought in that this guy's having a great spring, and, man, I can't wait to see him out there, and he may be the next Butkus Award winner at linebacker and all that. Just show me, man. Just show me. I'm going to be pulling for you. I'm going to be there with bells on, but I'm not getting sucked in of predicting that we're going to win 8, 9, 10 ball games again this year. And then we come back and win 5. So I'm just going to let that lie.
Thank you.
So
that's where I stand too.
Well, I mean, I just think, again, the old George Bush fooled me once. Shame on you. Fooled me twice. You can't get fooled again. We've been fooled about 10 times. Okay, so we just keep sucking in the same old jargon from everybody. So I think we're just going to say, I tell you what, we're going to try something different. We're not going to do a prediction. We'll just wait and see how it all kind of starts out. All right, NIL Collective, I saw a thing that came across this morning on the Yellowhammer News, and we'll give them credit because they pushed it out. NIL Collective funding per NCAA estimates now, and the source came from B. Crawford on 24/7. All right, so I'm just giving credit to everybody that put this together. So if you go on X and you go pull up at B. Crawford 24/7, he's part of the 24/7 network. They did this. So again, I don't know what goes into all this, but this is based on these estimates. Texas is number 1 in the country at $22.2 million. Ohio State's $20.2 million, and second, LSU's third at $20.1. Those are the only 3 in the country that have a collective over $20 million. Then you have the Georgia Bulldogs at 18.3. You have Texas A&M at 17.2. You have Michigan at 16.3. Then you have Alabama at 15.9, Georgia at 15.9, and Clemson at 15.2. That is the top ones in the country. Auburn comes in at 11.5 right now, which is a little bit on down the list. So Clint said Oregon is number one. Again, I think these numbers are a little bit skewed when you look at this because they got Phil Knight. And, when you got a pocketbook like him, I don't know that you have a limit on collective. So you got a booster at Michigan that's got umpteen $1 billion, and his wife wants to buy the best players. And if that's what he wants to do to get her to quit nagging him about Michigan football, then he's probably said, look, just go do whatever you got to do. Go buy Bryce Underwood if that's who you want. But that's what we're dealing with in college football now. And all the comments on here are just so negative toward this. I mean, from college football fans. And look, that's what's watching all of this stuff. But until you change how you do this is what you got to deal with in college football. And it's an arms race.
It is. We've said this for years. The thing about Auburn is we've got deep pockets, but we've got deep pockets in a select few people. And those select few people have to really be bought in to where you're spending your money. And you and I have talked to some of those people recently, and they have let us know that the money's there to be had if the money is going to be spent well. And it has been passed along to Hugh Freeze and this staff. Don't miss out on somebody that you think can make a major difference if it's going to come down to money. And last year we did miss out on Cam Ward solely because of money. I think we were going to get him, weren't we? But Miami beat us to the punch, and now he's a Heisman Trophy finalist. And Miami had a great season when they would have been very, very mediocre without him.
I think they may have had a losing record without him. I mean, they would have been in our boat. I think we're at a better defense.
Yeah, I think we would be in the same boat. So I think Auburn's got the money they need to go spend the money on who they need. But I'm not surprised to hear that Auburn's half of what Ohio State's got. If you want to really look into what that collective's built up, no surprise to me to hear that. I don't know about you. Especially when you hear Alabama and Georgia's kind of split in the middle. If you were to ask me where Auburn sits between Alabama and Georgia, I'd say we were several $1 million behind them, but probably not a big drastic difference.
$4.5 million.
Yeah, so it's all of that. It feels like somebody did some really good research, and those numbers probably pan out to what the reality of it is out there.
I saw somebody on a South Carolina post yesterday, the big defensive end for South Carolina, I think he's getting $1.5 million.
It is 1.5.
And Travaris Robinson made $400,000 as a coach last year.
Wow. Well, who's more important?
I mean, obviously the player, but I mean, it's like
I'm telling you,
it's crazy.
If you and I had to pick between, I'm hoping Keldrick Faulk's a first-team All-American next year. Okay. Whoever the assistant coach is that's coaching him on the defensive line, if I've got to choose next year who's the most important piece, is that defensive line coach or Keldrick Faulk? Keldrick Faulk. Spend your money on making sure that he stays around because my eyes tell me he's about to be an All-American at Auburn. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, players make the plays for sure.
Players.
I just think as Glenn said, it's funny. We're talking millions about 17 and 18-year-old kids. I just think the mindset is, again, I'm not saying a coach deserves X number of dollars or whatever, but this thing is totally flipped on its head where the players on the field, certain players, not all of them, okay,
difference makers,
are making way more than the coaches that are coaching them.
Well,
so what is that?
Well, it's value, man. It's capitalism at its best. You and I just made a statement on the previous, 3 minutes ago, we went, why in the hell we not spend enough money to go and get Cam Ward last year because he would have gotten us to 9 or 10 wins and we'd probably be sitting in the playoffs. Well, let's say Cam Ward cost you $5 to $7 million last year. I don't know what the number ends up, but it's probably there. How much money is it going to cost Auburn to not be at that 9 or 10 wins and in the playoffs? A whole hell of a lot more than $5 to $7 million. A lot more money, a lot more exposure, a lot more brand. How much money is it going to cost Auburn if Hugh Freeze goes 5-7 next year and we all look at each other and go, we got to get rid of him? Can't sit around and watch him lose year in and year out. A lot more than $5 to $7 million. So my answer to you and Glenn is it's all a value deal. And if the value deal and those difference-making players cost that much money, but they make the difference, then you can either choose to do that
No,
or don't.
you can either play in the system that the system is. I think the biggest thing is that everybody's talking about is the system. That it's absurd that, we've gotten to this point where it's not that people don't want people to make money. It's not that people disagree with a capitalistic society, but when you pay a basketball recruit $7 million at BYU, number one, I mean, it's getting out of control. It's what people are saying in the system that the way it is.
I'm gonna take the devil's advocate because I do though here. I think what it's exposing is the value of those kids.
I totally hear you, man.
I hear you loud and clear, Brett. And I agree with you. If you had some utopian world where the kids, like they always have been, that bring the immense amount of value to those universities, don't get anything besides that paper that they get.
I didn't say that.
But if we're going to play, and what's your value to the school? Your value to, I don't know, what are we paying Janai Broom right now?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's got to be in the millions to keep him around. Do you agree with that?
Probably.
Is he worth every penny?
He is.
Every single penny. Now, is Hugh Freeze worth every penny we're paying him right now?
No, I mean, come on. You know the answer to that.
But here's where I'm going. I
know exactly where you're going, and I'm not saying. Did I ever say I didn't think kids deserve to be paid and compensated? I didn't say that.
Well, but the people that are commenting, and I'm not saying it's you, but those that are commenting on that thread think that we're going to go back to a system where it doesn't show value for the people for what they bring to the field or to the court.
I'm not saying that either. I think what you have to do is you have to have some type of regulation. And if you want to spend your money on one or two players, that's fine. I'm not saying, look, this has been going on under the table for years.
Yeah.
So now that it's exposed and you have an opportunity to actually do it the right way, then let's actually do it the right way. I think every coach, even Nick Saban, Randy, has come out and said, this is not sustainable long term. He said it, and he's gotten upset about it. And you've seen other coaches come out and say it. It's all great when your team's on top and you got the biggest collective and everything's hunky-dory, but everybody can't – that's not going to work long term because the price of these kids that if you paid Neem offered $1 million, I'm just throwing a random number out there, the next year's guy is going to think he's worth $2 million. And then the next guy's going to think he's worth $3 million.
Yeah,
and then
but the market's going to deem that, Brett. You can think you're worth whatever the hell you want to say you're worth. It's like a piece of real estate that you and I go and, I mean, you can put whatever value you want. That's just a random number. Let's just say you and I own a house at the lake that we want to put it up for $1.5 million. It's worth what somebody will pay for it.
That's everything. That's in everything always.
That's the same here with these kids. It's worth what you'll pay for it. And it's also worth what you won't pay for it. And we're sitting here as Auburn fans. And the reason that we're in the shape that we're in with a coach that may lose his job next year if he doesn't win 7 or 8 or 9 games is because we didn't go spend the money on Cam Ward last year. You've said it until you're blue. You've said it more than anybody I know on the air.
Because I'm willing to play in the system that's out there right now. Doesn't mean that I'm all for the system. But if you're going to do it, you're going to play in the system that's set currently. Again, it goes back to the comment that I made about the schedule for this year. In the now, in the present, the argument that you guys were talking about versus my argument on that schedule deal was don't go schedule a bunch of tough non-conference games. I agree with that. But in the present and the here and now, that didn't make a hill of beans difference on who got in because you didn't win your conference games. The ones that were complaining didn't win their conference games, so the argument was moot in the present. Now, again, if you're trying to ride the speculative wave and figure out what next year's committee is going to do, then you have the right to do that. It's no different than this right here, than talking about we don't know where the market value is going to be and we don't know how it's going to go. But Yeah, it's all going to be dictated on revenue sharing and everything like that. But I think what most college football fans are talking about is you get tired and overrun by the begging for it's not enough. I got to have more, got to have more, got to have more, got to have more, because that's all we talk about. That's all we talk about on here. We take comments from people all the time. 90% of our conversation gets encapsulated and engulfed in, hey, we got to raise more money. Got to raise more money. Got to raise more money. You wake up every day. Got to raise more money. Hey, guess what? We ain't got enough NIL. Ohio State's got more NIL than us. We got to go get this player. Okay, how are we going to do that? Got to have more money. Oh, football season's over. Guess what? Basketball's around the corner. You want to be good in basketball? Got to raise more money. Got to raise more money. Got to raise more money. I mean, it just gets overwhelming, man. That's the point. That's all you talk about is how many players we're going to buy.
But it's the system, and you better learn to embrace it or get
and we've
out
embraced it. I think we've embraced it. I think all the Power Five have.
I think we've done a better job than embrace it in basketball. I don't think that we're spending the money that some of these others are.
But you worry. But you worry if we're going to talk about this, you worry that if you don't spend more money, that you may not be at the top.
But here's where I am with Bruce Pearl. As long as he's in the lead, I got all the confidence in the world that he's going to figure it out. And if you got a coach on board that you're not willing to sit here and say what I just said about Bruce Pearl, then you may not have the right coach. I don't worry about basketball. We may have a down year next year when you have 10 seniors leave. I doubt it. Not as much confidence than I have in that man. So you better go and continue to look for that person that you can be confident in, and it may cost you a lot of money before you find him. Auburn is proof positive of that, but we better hope that we can find a Bruce Pearl on the football side sooner than later.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think what we've seen Bruce say, though, and we'll close with this because I know we got to get out, but I think what we've heard Bruce say, and rightfully so, and even Auburn fans on this show, is that, hey, I wish we had more attention to basketball with NIL, because we hear the cry on that. We hear, we need more money on that side.
Amen. What he just said is where I sit. I know what I got there. If I'm one of these big donors and I want to give to something that I know I'm going to get a return on my investment, I'm going to get an ROI on my investment when it comes to Auburn basketball and Bruce Pearl. And I am buying into whatever he's selling. And he's marketing and he's selling it better than anybody else we've got. So amen to that.
You think about some of these, you're talking about ROI, and again, we will finish with this. But Randy, if you want to look down, who's getting their money's worth?
Georgia.
Is Ohio State getting their money's worth right now at 20.2? Didn't they go out and buy the highest pay? Didn't they have the highest roster? Didn't Texas A&M do that a few years ago with Jimbo? Well, where are they at? Texas A&M and Ohio State are in the top 5 in NIL. I mean, they just laid an egg at home to Michigan. They scored 10 points. I mean, they got all the money in the daggum world. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is it doesn't necessarily always translate into success.
Well, the best program in the country is Georgia because they've got Kirby Smart. The best program was Alabama because they had Nick Saban. Now, Alabama's in a little bit of a gray area right now because they are right there with Georgia, getting their money's worth for what they spend, but they don't have Nick Saban there to sell and keep all the processes in place that led to that. So can Kalen DeBoer do what Nick Saban does? I've got my questions. But Georgia, if you ask me who's getting their best bang for the buck, my gosh, it's so easy. It's the Georgia Bulldogs.
Hey, do you know what how many out of the top 10 are in the playoffs in collective? How many teams?
How many?
3. And the only reason Clemson's there is because they won the championship game. If they hadn't won the championship game, they wouldn't be in. So you're the top 3 teams, Texas and Ohio State, and then Georgia. They're 3 of the. Actually, it was 4 because Clemson got in with the championship game. But 3 of them out of the top 11 in collective are actually in the playoffs, and they happen to be 3 out of the top 4. LSU's the other one. They're definitely not getting their money with Brian Kelly.
No, and people at some point are going to say the same thing we just said. I know we're up against the end of the show, but what am I getting my most bang for the buck for? And with Auburn right now, it's basketball. We can't throw enough money at basketball. You can't throw enough at it. There's nothing more positive we have going on as a university than Auburn men's basketball, and I think our women are right behind, Brett. I don't know if you've seen Sarai and the way she's been playing.
They've been playing great. Hey, they set a home. They just set a home attendance record, by the way.
It's going
for a non-conference game.
It will explode in the next year or two if they do what I think they're about to do. And we're going to throw NIL money at that, and we should, because I think we're going to get a great product in return.
I agree with that. Now, that'll be another topic. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about Auburn women's basketball tomorrow. I will. We've got an exciting day ahead of us tomorrow. We're going to be in Auburn. We're going to be at Bunkers. You and I are looking forward to that. We got potential of a couple of really good guests that they're working out their schedule right now to see if they can join us. So we'll have more on that a little bit later on. Kind of stay tuned for that. But, man, if you're in Auburn tomorrow at noon, we'd love for you to come out to Bunkers and hang out with us. I mean, that's why we go on location. Alan Brewer and everybody that's part of Bunkers are going to welcome us in tomorrow, and would love to have them love to have you come by and spend some time with us. So I just got notification. Now it's perfect timing that Coach Kleinard will join us tomorrow. He will be out with us. Nick Kleinard, the head men's golf coach for Auburn, that will be trying to defend that national championship, putting another great team out there this year, will join us at Bunkers tomorrow, Randy, and hoping our good friend Jason Caldwell is going to have an opportunity to come by as well.
Another program that you're totally getting your bang for the buck. You throw money at that golf program. We're recruiting at a tremendous pace. And I'll say this, Coach Kleinard, that's as class act as we have on that campus. Anytime we've reached out to him, he's come through. And he's just so humble and so genuine. We're very lucky to have him. And clearly all of the big-time recruits out there sense the same thing that we're sensing. So I don't see that coming to an end anytime soon when you look at the facilities that Auburn men's golf's got to play under. The women's golf team also really good. So it's going to be great to have him on. And if you haven't seen the simulators that are there at Bunkers, it's a perfect setup for a golf team to come out and check out.
Yeah, it's going to be a good Friday for us. I'm looking forward to it. Sense of Green, I want to thank Sense of Green moving into 2025, going to be one of our lead partners here on the podcast. And we really appreciate Sense of Green and their partnership with us here on the Auburn Blitz. Wade will be out there with us tomorrow. Uncle T-Bone, you think he's going to miss an opportunity to come out and get a little bit of food, maybe hit a golf ball or two on a Friday? No, he's not. So Wade will be out there with us. Sense of Green is the leading carrier of carrier units. So if you need a carrier unit or looking to replace your unit, call on Sense of Green. They've got some great promotions going on through the end of the year. So call and check them out. Tell them Auburn Blitz sent you, and they'll take care of you there, Randy. And I know you guys are busy in Davil, Alabama, with everything going on down there.
Well, very busy in Davil, but I'll take a chance right now to go ahead and say that we do have a contract that's finalized in the Auburn market on a new building that will be opening up there. And we'll be doing a lot with Auburn Blitz out of that building as well. But it's on Opelika Road. It's right next door to Laredo's. It's an ABS, American Business Systems, that was there before. So we'll be moving into that location. And I think we'll also have another production facility for our sign company there in the Auburn market as well. So a lot of moving parts going on with what we're doing in Davil over in the Auburn area. And we're trying to grow in that area and working really hard to do that. So Lee Apparel, if you've got advertising and marketing budgets, you want to throw at corporate apparel, customized apparel, promos, call on Lee Apparel, and signage from start to finish, design to installation. Give us a call here in Davil, 256-825-0197.
Yeah, definitely. All your T-shirts, all your sign needs. Justin wants us to have a driving contest between us, Coach Kleinard, and T-Bone. I'm in. I'm all in. So let's line up and see in the simulation tomorrow who can have the longest drive. I don't know who I'm betting on.
I don't either. I'm gonna go. I've heard from our good friend Lee Williams how great a golfer Coach Kleinert was, and
Right.
probably still is. And if Lee Williams says you're a really good golfer and you were up to his standard at one point in time, I know the answer to this.
But guess what?
Is the easiest.
In one swing in a simulation, though, we can give it hell.
No.
Hey, I mean, we can see you could outdrive somebody. So we'll see if we can get that going. Hey, come out to Bunkers tomorrow. If you're watching this, I've already had some people text me, said that they're going to come by tomorrow. We've had some of you comment and say that you were going to try to come by. We want you to come by. We want you to feel. We'd love to fill Bunkers up. I think Bunkers would love nothing more than for everybody to blow in there and order lunch and hang out and maybe take the rest of the day off and go over there and visit that beautiful bar they have. And just, we're getting close to the holidays here, and why not, right? Treat yourself.
I'm all about treating myself.
Yeah.
Brett knows me well. If I'd find my way to that bar, I'd end up there for 3 or 4 more hours. Unfortunately, I probably got to put some of these deals to rest before I can do that a full day tomorrow. But I will be there for lunch, and I am looking forward to it. And if you haven't been there, I can't say this enough. It'll knock you back how nice it is inside this place.
It will. It will. Come see it for yourself. We're going to be live on location tomorrow for the Auburn Blitz at noon. So make sure you come out, hang out with us tomorrow. Guys, it's been a great show this morning. Great comments, a lot that we covered. Really appreciate all of you out there. Have a great rest of your day. Folks, Auburn Blitz coming up at noon.